When did you watch someone's kindness finally run out? My friend Maya was everyone's personal seamstress. For 8 years, she'd been creating custom dresses for every event. She showed up at Lisa's house at 5 a.m. the morning of her wedding when a bridesmaid dress ripped. And out of our friend group, I was the only one who insisted on paying her. At this point, everyone just expected her to appear and work her magic for free. But this year was different. Maya finally got her first Fashion Week showcase downtown, after 8 years of designing, and sent us all these heartfelt invitations asking us to come. Why would we go there to look at clothes on other people? Maya explained how she was showing her actual art, not alterations for clients. It's more raw, more personal. She didn't need us to buy anything. She just wanted her friends there. The opening was Friday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m., and she'd specifically picked that date because she knew it worked for everyone's schedule. Everyone responded to her invite with so much enthusiasm. Lisa wrote this 5-part message about how much Maya deserved this. But on the night of her opening, the group chat had gone silent. I got there about 15 minutes after it started and found Maya standing alone next to her artist statement. She'd set up this whole welcome table with handwritten name tags for each of us. "Where is everyone?" I asked. She kept saying they were probably just running late. By 7:30, the texts started rolling in. Lisa said her kids got sick. Another person had a work emergency. Someone else had car trouble. At 7:45, Maya got a text from Jennifer asking, "When will your fashion thing be over? I need my sister's wedding dress hemmed by Sunday." I watched her eyes fill with tears. By 8 p.m., strangers were admiring her designs while our friends were nowhere to be found. I put my hand on her shoulders and looked her straight into her teary eyes. "You don't need them. You never did. So please don't cry and enjoy your show. It's too beautiful for you to hide in the corner." Maya hugged me briefly, wiped the tears on her sleeve, and started walking around introducing her pieces to the strangers. 2 days later, during our group's monthly Sunday brunch, everyone showed up like nothing had happened. Maya sat there quietly until our friend Lisa finally looked at her and said, "Oh, by the way, how was your little sewing thing? Sorry I couldn't make it. My sitter canceled at the last minute." Maya took a deep breath. "I really needed you there at my first fashion show." A few people coughed and turned away. I tried to speak up through the silence. "You guys really hurt her. She was there alone." Lisa waved her hand dismissively and said, "Don't be so dramatic. Anyway, I have a job for you. My sister's wedding is next month in Portugal, and I kind of already told her you'd make the bridesmaids' dresses, so make sure you get started soon." "So, nobody's going to say sorry?" Lisa put down her fork and looked annoyed. "For what? Having lives?" In a swift, cold movement, Maya pulled out her phone right there at brunch and opened her Pinterest board. "You know what? You're right. You do have lives. Let me give them back to you." Lisa asked, "What are you doing?" But Maya was already clicking through folders. "I'm deleting every dress I've planned out for you guys." Someone screamed, "I need my daughter's prom dress next week." Maya kept going. "Lisa, your wedding dress documentation deleted. Jennifer, that vintage restoration of your grandma's dress, gone." Everyone was screaming at her to stop, but Maya kept going. I just sipped my coffee and watched them get exactly what they deserved after using her. "If you want any custom work, my rate is $500 per hour, minimum 20 hours per dress. That's $10,000 for a wedding dress, $5,000 for alterations. I take Venmo." Then she pulled out a seam ripper from her purse. She put a 20 on the table for her coffee and walked out. Later that day, I let her take a depression nap in my bed. When she woke up, she saw she had 43 missed calls and hundreds of unread texts, all from our friend group. I walked back into my living room and saw Maya still passed out on my couch, her phone on the coffee table lighting up with a new notification every few seconds. The screen showed another dozen texts had come in just while I was in the kitchen making myself a sandwich. Maya looked more peaceful than I'd seen her in months. Her face finally relaxed without that constant worried expression she always wore around our friends. So I grabbed her phone to silence it before the constant buzzing woke her up. The preview messages on the lock screen were absolutely wild and I couldn't help, but read them even though I knew I shouldn't. Lisa had sent 12 messages in a row, starting with confusion about why Maya wasn't responding, and escalating to actual threats about suing her for breach of promise regarding her sister Bet's wedding dress that she'd already told everyone Maya would make. Jennifer had switched tactics from demanding to bargaining, offering to pay half of Maya's new rate if she'd just do this one last favor for old time's sake and finish the vintage restoration of her grandmother's dress. The unnamed friend with the daughter who needed a prom dress had gotten her mom involved, and now there were voice messages from someone's mother calling Maya selfish and ungrateful after everything the group had done for her over the years. I scrolled through more messages and saw people trying every manipulation tactic possible, from guilt trips about ruined special occasions to promises of future payment that we both knew would never happen. Someone had even dug up old photos of Maya at various group events and sent them with captions about loyalty and friendship. The group chat that Maya had been removed from was apparently in full panic mode according to the screenshots people were sending her, with everyone arguing about who was going to find a replacement seamstress and how much real alterations actually cost. Around 6 in the evening, Maya finally stirred and opened her eyes. looking confused for a second about where she was before remembering everything that had happened at brunch. I made her some tea while she sat up and rubbed her face, then handed her the mug and her phone at the same time. We sat there together on my couch scrolling through all the messages, and Maya started laughing at the sheer absurdity of Lisa threatening legal action over a dress that was never officially commissioned or paid for. Then the laughter turned to tears as 8 years of suppressed feelings about being used and taken for granted finally came pouring out, then back to laughter when she read Jennifer's pathetic attempt at negotiation, then tears again as the emotional whiplash of the whole situation hit her. She kept wiping her eyes and shaking her head, showing me particularly ridiculous messages like someone asking if Maya would at least provide the patterns she'd already created so they could hire someone else to make the dresses cheaper. After about 20 minutes of reading through everything, Maya took a deep breath and opened the group chat one more time, typing out a calm and professional message that her business rates were firm at $500 per hour with a 20-hour minimum for custom work. She had contracts available for anyone interested in hiring her services, and she wished them all the best in finding other seamstresses who could meet their needs. She hit send and immediately started blocking numbers one by one, starting with Lisa and working her way through the entire friend group. Within minutes of Maya blocking everyone, my phone started going absolutely crazy with calls and texts, since they couldn't reach her anymore. Lisa called me 3 times in a row before I finally answered and told her that I fully supported Maya's decision to set professional boundaries and suggested she check out the talented seamstresses at the mall who charge fair market prices for their work. The explosion of anger on the other end of the line was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear while Lisa screamed about betrayal and how I was enabling Maya's breakdown. The next morning came way too fast after staying up late with Maya talking through everything, but we both got up early and drove to her apartment to deal with all the dress materials she'd already bought with her own money for their various projects. Her spare bedroom was basically a fabric warehouse with bolts of silk, satin, tulle, and lace stacked on every surface, plus boxes of buttons, zippers, thread, and other supplies she'd accumulated. We started pulling everything out and organizing it by project, and the reality of how much money Maya had spent hit us both hard. There was $1,500 worth of fabric just for Lisa's sister's wedding party, another $800 in materials for the vintage restoration Jennifer wanted, and at least $700 more for the prom dress that was supposedly so urgent. Maya had receipts for everything filed away in a folder, and we counted up nearly $3,000 in materials that she'd never be reimbursed for, all bought on her credit card that she was still paying off. She decided to keep it all and use it for paying clients instead of giving anyone the chance to claim she owed them the materials. Maya pulled out her phone and opened her professional Instagram account that she'd barely used before, typing up a post about having openings for new clients with her rate structure clearly displayed, and photos from her fashion show to demonstrate her skill level. She tagged it with local fashion hashtags and posted it while we were still surrounded by piles of fabric. Within 30 minutes, she had her first inquiry from someone who'd seen her work at the gallery, and by the 2-hour mark, she had 3 serious potential clients asking about commissioning custom pieces for upcoming events. We were still sorting fabric when we heard loud knocking on Maya's apartment door that afternoon, and looking through the peephole showed Lisa standing there with her arms crossed and her angry face on. Maya stepped back from the door and shook her head, and we both stayed quiet while Lisa knocked harder and started yelling through the door about how this was all a big misunderstanding, and Maya was throwing away years of friendship over nothing. Lisa kept escalating, shouting that Maya would regret losing such good friends who'd supported her hobby for so long. But Maya just sat on her couch with her hands over her ears until Lisa finally gave up and stomped away after about 15 minutes of yelling. Once we were sure Lisa was gone, I helped Maya get down to actual business setup since she'd never needed formal systems when she was just helping friends for free. We spent the rest of the afternoon creating a proper booking calendar on her laptop, downloading contract templates that she could customize for different types of work, and setting up payment processing through various apps so clients could pay deposits and final balances easily. Maya had never thought about things like rush fees, material markups, or consultation charges because she'd always just absorbed every cost herself, but now she needed real professional structure to run an actual business. While we were working on the contracts, Maya's phone buzzed with a Google alert she'd set up for her name, and we saw that Gavin Hunter, the fashion blogger who'd been at her show taking photos and notes, had published a piece about discovering her work. The article focused entirely on her unique design aesthetic and incredible craftsmanship, with gorgeous photos of her pieces from the show, and not a single mention of the friend drama that had led to this moment. The comments under Gavin's article were already filling up with people asking about Maya's contact info and where they could buy her pieces, which made Maya's hands shake as she scrolled through them. Her phone buzzed with a Venmo notification, and we both stared at the screen showing Jennifer had sent $50 with a note that said, "Deposit for alterations," followed by 3 heart emojis. Maya clicked the refund button so fast she almost dropped her phone, typing back that her minimum deposit was $2,500 and attaching her new contract template. Jennifer started calling immediately, but Maya declined every call while we finished setting up her Square payment system and professional email address. The gallery coordinator texted Maya that afternoon saying she had someone Maya absolutely needed to meet, a business mentor named Lionel Castro who helped artists turn their talent into real businesses. We drove to his office downtown the next morning where this older guy in a perfect suit listened to Maya explain how she'd been working for free for 8 years, buying all the materials herself, never charging for her time or expertise. Lionel's face went through about 6 different expressions before he pulled out a calculator and started showing Maya what her work was actually worth in the market, pointing to similar designers charging $800 just for a consultation. He pulled up websites of other custom designers in our city, and Maya's eyes got wider with each price list he showed her, especially when he explained that her skill level was actually above most of them, based on the photos from her show. While Lionel was printing out business planning worksheets for Maya, her phone started blowing up with Instagram notifications, because the friend with the daughter who needed the prom dress had posted a bunch of old photos of them together. The captions were all about remembering when friendship meant more than money, and missing the days when we helped each other out of love, with Maya tagged in every single one. Maya screenshotted everything without responding, creating a new folder on her phone labeled Evidence, while Lionel watched with his eyebrows raised. He told Maya this was exactly why she needed professional boundaries, and helped her draft a cease and desist template she could use if the harassment got worse. That same afternoon, Maya got an email from someone named Rosamund Emery, who owned a high-end boutique downtown, saying she'd seen Gavin's blog post and wanted to discuss carrying Maya's pieces in her store. The email was professional and specific, mentioning particular designs from the show and asking about wholesale pricing and production timelines, nothing like the demanding texts from our friend group. Maya called me immediately, and we spent an hour researching Rosamund's boutique online, finding out she carried exclusive designers and had been featured in several fashion magazines. We scheduled a meeting for 2 days later, and I went with Maya, both of us dressed professionally and carrying Maya's portfolio that we'd stayed up late organizing. Rosamund's boutique was gorgeous with exposed brick walls and carefully curated displays, each piece positioned like art rather than just clothing. She greeted us with real enthusiasm and actually knew fashion terminology, discussing construction techniques and fabric choices with Maya like they were equals. After looking through Maya's portfolio and examining the sample pieces she'd brought, Rosamund offered a consignment deal with a 60-40 split in Maya's favor, explaining that she usually did 50-50, but Maya's work deserved better terms. While we were still at the boutique discussing delivery schedules, Maya's phone lit up with texts from someone named Bet, who turned out to be Lisa's sister, the one whose wedding was supposedly ruined without Maya's help. Bet's messages started with guilt about how her special day was destroyed, but quickly turned nasty when Maya didn't respond immediately, calling her selfish and saying she'd destroyed years of friendship over money. Maya calmly sent Bet the same contract and rate sheet she'd sent everyone else, adding that she'd be happy to create custom bridesmaid dresses if Bet wanted to pay the professional rate. The response was immediate profanity that made Rosamund's eyes widen when she caught a glimpse of Maya's screen, but Maya just blocked the number and turned her attention back to our business discussion. Over the next few days, Maya started working on a new capsule collection using all the fabric she'd bought for the canceled friend projects, cutting into the expensive silk she'd bought for Lisa's sister's wedding party with zero guilt. She worked with this amazing energy I hadn't seen in years, finally creating pieces that showed her real artistic vision instead of just fixing other people's fashion emergencies. Her dining table became a design studio covered in sketches and fabric swatches, while she developed 6 cohesive looks that told a story about transformation and self-worth. Word about the brunch confrontation spread through our social circles faster than gossip usually did, with people taking sides and creating their own drama about the situation. Some mutual friends reached out to me saying Maya was being too harsh and should remember who supported her when she was nobody, while others admitted privately they'd been taking advantage of her for years. The coffee shop where we all used to meet became awkward territory with different factions sitting at different tables and shooting looks across the room. 3 weeks after everything exploded, Jennifer's sister reached out to Maya directly with an actual apology, saying she was embarrassed by how Jennifer had treated someone so talented and wanted to book Maya for alterations at her full professional rate. She sent a deposit of $3,000 through Maya's new payment system and included measurements and inspiration photos, treating Maya like the professional she'd always been. Maya almost couldn't believe it when the payment cleared, staring at her business bank account like the numbers might disappear if she blinked too hard. The next day brought Maya's first payment from a completely new client who'd found her through Gavin's blog, $5,000 for a custom cocktail dress for a charity gala. Maya literally cried when that payment hit her account, sitting on her couch with tears streaming down her face as she realized this is what her work had always been worth. The next morning, we went to our usual coffee shop for breakfast, and the owner pulled me aside while Maya was in the bathroom. She told me she'd heard Lisa and the whole group there yesterday complaining about how the mall seamstress wanted $300 just to hem a dress. They kept saying it was robbery and that Maya would have done it for free with better quality. The owner said they sat there for an hour trying to figure out who else they knew who could sew. Maya came back from the bathroom and I didn't tell her right away, but I could see the owner giving Maya this proud smile. Later that afternoon, Lionel called Maya about meeting his accountant friend who helped small businesses get set up properly. We drove to this office building downtown, where the accountant spent 2 hours showing Maya how to track expenses and explaining tax stuff I'd never even heard of. Maya's eyes got huge when he showed her she could write off all the fabric she bought, her sewing machines, even part of her apartment since she worked from home. He helped her open a business bank account and set up quarterly tax payments, and Maya kept asking if all this was really legal because she couldn't believe how much money she'd save. The accountant laughed and said most artists don't know about these things and end up paying way too much in taxes. 3 weeks passed and Maya's calendar was completely full for the next month with paying clients who actually valued her work. She showed me her booking system one night and I couldn't believe she was making more in 1 week than she used to spend on materials for our friends in a whole month. Every slot was filled with deposits already paid, and she had a waiting list starting for the month after. I started noticing how different Maya looked when we'd meet for lunch. She stood up straight now instead of hunching over like she used to. When she talked to servers or store clerks, she looked them in the eye and spoke clearly instead of mumbling apologies for existing. Her whole presence had changed, and she moved through spaces like she belonged there. Even her clothes looked better because she was finally making things for herself that fit perfectly, instead of wearing old stuff while everyone else got her best work. Then Lisa's husband Lorenz called my phone while I was at work saying Lisa was devastated about losing Maya's friendship, and could I please help fix things? I told him Lisa knew exactly what she needed to do if she wanted to fix things. She could apologize and pay Maya's professional rates like any other client. He got quiet, and then said those rates were unreasonable for friends. I said that's exactly the problem, and hung up. Maya had been working on her capsule collection for Rosamond's spring showcase, and the pieces were incredible. She used techniques she'd never had time for when she was constantly fixing other people's fashion emergencies. Each piece told part of her story about finding her worth, and the construction was so detailed that even I could see the difference from her usual work. Rosamond came by Maya's apartment to see the progress and kept taking photos and making excited noises about how well these would sell. She said this showcase could establish Maya as a serious designer in the city, and started talking about connections she could make with fashion buyers. The fabric store owner called Maya that week with news that made her laugh out loud. He said now that she had a business license and tax ID number, he could give her the professional discount that all the other designers got. 30% off everything and access to exclusive fabric lines that weren't available to regular customers. He admitted he'd always wondered how she afforded so much material, and assumed she had family money or something because she bought more than most of his professional clients. Maya calculated how much money she would have saved over 8 years with that discount, and it was enough for a car. That weekend, Jennifer showed up at my apartment door looking desperate. She wanted me to convince Maya to come back to the friend group, and kept saying Maya was being stubborn over nothing. I stood in my doorway and told her Maya hadn't gone anywhere. She was exactly where she'd always been, just with appropriate boundaries now. Jennifer tried to push past me, saying she needed to explain the situation properly, but I blocked her and said Maya's rates and contact information were available if she wanted to hire her. Jennifer called me a bad friend and stomped off, but I just went back to watching my show. Maya called me the next day so excited because she'd just hired her first assistant. This fashion student from the local college had been following Maya's work online and begged for the chance to learn from her. Maya was paying her $20 an hour, which the student couldn't believe because most internships were unpaid. The student said it was more than she made at her retail job, and she was actually learning useful skills. Maya said it felt weird being someone's boss, but the student treated her with so much respect and actually took notes when Maya explained techniques. They worked together on finishing the showcase pieces, and Maya said having an extra set of skilled hands made everything go faster. Then the gallery coordinator who'd organized Maya's first fashion show called with an invitation that made Maya scream so loud I heard it through the phone. She wanted Maya to participate in their summer showcase, but this time as a featured designer instead of just a participant. Maya would get a whole section of the gallery, professional lighting, and they'd even pay for promotional materials. Maya accepted immediately and started sketching ideas for what she could create when she was properly valued and supported. 3 weeks later, Lisa called me crying about how her sister Bet had to buy her wedding dress from Lorenz's bridal. She kept going on about how it cost $8,000 and looked nothing like what Maya would have made. I listened to her complain for about 5 minutes before telling her that was exactly what she chose when she treated Maya like free labor. Lisa hung up on me, but I didn't care because that same night Maya and I were celebrating her first profitable month. We sat on her apartment floor with a bottle of champagne looking at her business bank account on her laptop. The number showed $15,000 and Maya kept refreshing the page like it might disappear. She pulled up her spreadsheet showing all the paying clients she'd booked and the deposits they'd already sent. We toasted to her finally getting paid what she was worth, and she started crying happy tears. Over the next few days, some people we knew from around town started reaching out to Maya with real apologies. They admitted they'd been asking for free work too and hadn't realized how much they were taking advantage. Maya accepted their apologies but made it clear she was running a business now with set rates and contracts. One woman even booked her right away for a dress at full price. Lionel set up a dinner meeting with Maya and 3 other artists he knew who'd gone through similar situations. There was a painter who used to do free murals for friends, a photographer who did every wedding for free, and a jewelry maker who gave away custom pieces. They all shared stories about learning to value their work, and Maya took notes on everything. The photographer gave her tips on contracts, and the painter told her about tax deductions she could take. Maya left that dinner feeling less alone and more confident about her business decisions. Her Instagram started blowing up after Gavin's blog post got shared by bigger fashion accounts. She hit 10,000 followers in just 2 weeks, and the inquiries started coming from other cities. Someone in the next state wanted to fly her out for a custom wedding dress consultation. Another person offered to pay for shipping both ways if Maya would make them a coat. She raised her prices slightly, and people still kept booking. Then I heard through mutual friends that Lisa's group had tried to hire another local seamstress with their usual demands. The seamstress called Maya asking for advice because something felt off about how they approached her. Maya warned her about their pattern of expecting free work and endless revisions without payment. The seamstress thanked Maya and declined their project, telling them her rates were firm and non-negotiable. Lisa's group was apparently shocked that another seamstress wouldn't bend to their demands. Meanwhile, Maya was working on her most ambitious piece yet for Rosamond's spring showcase. She showed me the sketches and fabric samples, and it was unlike anything she'd made before. The dress had hand-beaded details that took hours per square inch, and a structure that required techniques she'd only seen in haute couture. She worked on it every evening after finishing her paid client work, finally having time to explore her artistic vision. Rosamond came by to check the progress and took photos for the boutique's social media, calling it a masterpiece in progress. I convinced Maya she needed to protect her growing brand legally, so we found a lawyer who specialized in fashion trademarks. The lawyer was impressed by Maya's portfolio and said she should have done this years ago. We spent 3 hours going through paperwork to trademark her brand name and register her signature design elements. It cost $2,000, but Maya paid it without hesitation, knowing it was an investment in her future. The lawyer also helped her update her contracts to include stronger language about design ownership and reproduction rights. That same week, the friend with the daughter who needed a prom dress posted on social media about her shopping nightmare. She'd paid $800 for rush alterations at the department store, and the dress still didn't fit right. Her daughter looked disappointed in the photos, trying to smile but clearly uncomfortable in the poorly fitted dress. Someone commented asking why she didn't use Maya, and the friend replied that Maya was too expensive now, which made me laugh considering what she'd just paid for inferior work. Maya saw the post but didn't comment, just kept working on her paying clients' beautiful custom pieces. Then the biggest news came in a thick envelope delivered to Maya's apartment by courier. The Regional Fashion Week Selection Committee had reviewed her portfolio and wanted her to show in their upcoming event. This wasn't just our small downtown showcase, but a major event that drew buyers from department stores and fashion houses. Maya called me screaming, and I rushed over to read the invitation with her. They were offering her a prime spot in the emerging designer section with professional lighting and press coverage. She'd be showing alongside designers who'd been in the business for decades, and the exposure could change everything for her career. We immediately started planning what she could create for this opportunity, knowing she had 4 months to prepare something extraordinary. 3 days later, Maya was sketching at her kitchen table when her laptop pinged with an email from Jennifer. She called me over to read it together because she wasn't sure she wanted to open it alone. Jennifer had written this long message admitting she'd only ever seen Maya as someone who could make her look good at events. She said she'd been thinking about it for weeks, and realized she'd never once asked Maya about her own dreams or goals. The email went on for 3 pages about how she'd taken Maya's talent for granted and treated her like a service instead of a friend. Maya read it twice, then typed back a short response thanking Jennifer for the honesty, but explaining that she couldn't go back to how things were. Jennifer replied immediately saying she understood and wished Maya success with her business. 2 weeks passed, and Rosamond called Maya with news that made her drop her coffee mug on the floor. Every single piece from Maya's spring collection had sold at the boutique, with some customers fighting over who got to buy certain items. Rosamond said she'd never seen anything like it in 15 years of running her store. People were paying full price without even trying to negotiate, and 3 customers had already asked when Maya's next collection would arrive. Maya sat on her kitchen floor surrounded by broken ceramic and coffee puddles, just staring at her phone. I helped her clean up while she kept repeating the sales numbers like she couldn't believe they were real. That evening, we sat down with Maya's receipts and bank statements to figure out exactly how much she'd made since setting her boundaries. In just 2 months of charging fair prices, she'd earned more than her entire previous year working part-time at the department store. We calculated that if she kept this pace, she could quit her day job and focus entirely on design. Maya started crying when she saw the total, not sad tears, but relief that she could finally pay her bills without stress. The next morning, Lisa showed up at Maya's apartment with a check for $10,000. She stood in the doorway saying she'd pay Maya's full rate if she'd make the dress for her sister's wedding. Maya pulled out her booking calendar and showed Lisa that she was completely booked for the next 3 months with paying clients. Lisa kept insisting there had to be some way to fit her in, but Maya explained that she couldn't bump other clients who'd already paid deposits. Lisa left the check on Maya's counter anyway, but Maya mailed it back the next day with a list of other local seamstresses. Meanwhile, the fashion student Maya had hired was absorbing everything like a sponge. During a fitting session, the student mentioned how different it was working for Maya compared to her internship at a fashion house. She said Maya was the first person to show her that creative work had real value and shouldn't be given away. Maya spent extra time teaching her about pricing structures and contract negotiations, things nobody had taught Maya when she was starting out. The student took notes on everything and started applying the same principles to her own freelance work. A week later, that thick envelope about the regional fashion week turned into reality when Maya got her official showcase assignment. She'd be showing in the main hall alongside designers who'd been in the business for 20 years. The organizers assigned her a prime spot with professional lighting and promised coverage from major fashion magazines. Maya immediately started planning a collection that would tell her story of learning to value herself. She pulled out fabrics she'd been saving for years, materials too nice to waste on free projects for ungrateful friends. Working with her became something different for me too as I watched her transform. I realized that supporting her through this had taught me things about my own life and work. I'd started saying no to extra projects at my job unless they came with extra pay. I'd stopped letting people assume I'd handle things just because I always had before. Maya's courage in setting boundaries had shown me how much of my own time I'd been giving away. One afternoon, Maya showed me her credit card statements with all the balances finally at zero. She'd paid off every cent of debt that had piled up from buying supplies for other people's events. The relief on her face was something I'll never forget as she cut up the cards right there in her living room. She said it felt like breaking chains she hadn't even known were wrapped around her. 6 months had passed since that brunch confrontation, and Maya's business had transformed completely. She had a waiting list of clients booking her 3 months in advance. She'd hired a second assistant to help with the increased workload and was looking at small studio spaces downtown. Her Instagram had grown to almost 20,000 followers, and she was getting inquiries from celebrities. The girl who used to work for free was now turning down projects because she didn't have time. Rosamond invited Maya to lunch at this fancy place I could never afford to discuss something important. She wanted to offer Maya a permanent partnership as the exclusive retailer for Maya's ready-to-wear line. The terms were incredible, including a guaranteed monthly payment regardless of sales plus 60% of all revenue. Rosamond had even drawn up plans for a special Maya section in her boutique with custom displays. Maya would have stable income for the first time in her life, while still maintaining creative control. Maya signed the contract right there in Rosamond's office, and we decided to celebrate at Chez Laurent, the fancy place where our old friend group used to do special occasions. The owner, Mr. Laurent, came over to our table the moment we sat down and started shaking Maya's hand, saying he'd read about her Fashion Week success in the local paper and how proud he was to see her making it. Maya blushed and thanked him while he brought us complimentary champagne and kept telling other diners about the famous designer in their midst. We ordered way too much food and laughed about how different things were from 6 months ago when Maya couldn't even afford coffee. 3 weeks later, I was scrolling Instagram when Lisa's sister's wedding photos popped up on my feed from some Portugal resort. She looked fine in her Lorenz's bridal dress, but the comment section was brutal with people asking why the dress looked so basic, and one person straight up writing that it looked like she grabbed it off the rack at Macy's last minute. Lisa, who usually responded to every single comment on family photos, stayed completely silent on this post. The next morning, a delivery guy showed up at my apartment with a huge box from Maya's studio. Inside was the most gorgeous jacket I'd ever seen with hand-stitched details, and my initials embroidered inside the collar in this beautiful gold thread. The card attached said, "For the only friend who saw my worth before I did." And when I looked up the materials alone, I realized this jacket would sell for at least $3,000 at her current rates. I called her immediately, but she just laughed and said it was nothing compared to what I'd given her by actually being there. A few days later, I went to visit Maya at her new studio space downtown that she'd just signed the lease on. The place was filled with rolls of expensive fabric and dress forms with half-finished pieces and 2 sewing stations for her assistants. We sat on the floor surrounded by swatches of silk and velvet while she organized her latest shipment from Italy. She picked up a piece of emerald green fabric and held it up to the light, then looked at me with tears in her eyes. She told me she was actually grateful for what happened at that brunch 6 months ago, because losing fake friends who only saw her as free labor led her to find her real value. She said she'd never been happier or more successful than she was right now, with real clients who respected her work and a business that let her create actual art instead of emergency alterations. The afternoon sun streamed through the studio windows, making all the fabrics glow, while Maya showed me her sketchbook full of designs for her next collection. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for me today. Kinda makes you stop and think about things, huh? Appreciate you hanging out and wondering through it all with me. Subscribe for more content like this.